All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 brought to us by the official beer of the program. You know, we're talking Johnny Cuba, European roots, a Caribbean soul, a refreshing German lager in a can. How else are we going to enjoy a little preseason football action tonight here in the ZASLOW mansion than with an ice-cold Johnny Cuba? Go to johnnycuba.us. Use the Johnny Locator. You find the nearest location to you. Make sure you always drink responsibly. And don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Very, very exciting because with the start of the football season, even with the start of the preseason, means fantasy football is right around the corner. And that means we get to connect with our pal Jamey Eisenberg, CBS Sports, senior fantasy football writer, joining us for another season of football. Jamey's been joining my show in whatever capacity, being on radio or here's ZASLOW Show 2.0. Man, I almost 15 years. Does that sound right?
It's been a long time. You know, it's always great to catch up with you. Always enjoy talking football with you and just talking in general. You're just such a great guy. But it's a pleasure to, be in another season and, it's here. It's fun. Let's get go.
Yeah, so I figure, we got the preseason games tonight, but first, and we'll get to those, like the key players for those teams and what we're looking at. But let's start out a little bit with some draft strategy stuff to help the listener now. If you haven't set your fantasy football date yet, you want to wait as long as possible. Like I know my league, we're doing it August 31st. So we are waiting until the last possible time, all right? Because you don't want to get stuck. God forbid a preseason game tonight. Maybe somebody gets hurt. But nonetheless, draft strategy. Let's see if we can help some people get going. The first round. What are the trends this year as far as wide receivers and running backs going in round one?
So the thing we're seeing now with the early drafts, early average draft position, is there's about 6 running backs and 6 wide receivers going in the first round. The first 4 or 5 picks, I think, are going to be pretty much locked in whatever order of Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, and Justin Jefferson as the top 3 receivers, and Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs as the top running backs. And so you may see in some cases, a lot of people like Devon Achane is creeping into those top 6 overall picks. Christian McCaffrey still in consideration for those top 6 overall picks. Depending on the format you play in, Derrick Henry, if it's non-PPR where you're not worried about catches, he's up there as well. I don't think there's going to be any other receivers that jump over those 3 yet. You may see a Malik Neighbors, if the hype gets a little bit out of control. I don't think so at this point because we would have heard that already. But for the most part, it's those 3 running backs, those 3 wide receivers. Some other running backs could change the top 6. But that's kind of how the first round looks. 6 running backs, 6 wide receivers.
And so, let's say the top five picks in the draft, what are we looking at with those wide receivers and running backs?
So again, format matters. But I think you're looking at, for me, the order is Chase 1, Robinson 2, Lamb 3, and then it's a couple of running backs in order. So it's Jahmyr Gibbs at 4, Christian McCaffrey at 5, and Devon Achane at 6.
Now, let's say if you're at if in the first round, you get one of those running backs you just mentioned, so you're selecting in the top 5 or top 6. Let's say you get one of those running backs you just mentioned. When it comes back around in the second round, are those such powerhouses at running back? Are you then looking for a wide receiver there, or would you then take another running back and pair the 2?
So if you play in a league that starts 3 wide receivers, I would prefer to come out of my first 2 rounds with at least one of the top either running backs or wide receivers, if not 2 wide receivers. But if you do take a running back there, I would try to get a wide receiver if you can. I'm not going to force it, though. There are, in the second round, some people like Brock Bowers at the end of the first round, but I think you'll see Brock Bowers and Trey McBride. Bowers, middle of round 2, McBride, end of round 2. Again, a lot of the drafts we're seeing now are more like analyst drafts or people, in the industry doing drafts. So it's kind of, skewed a little bit what average draft position will look like, because I do think once everybody starts drafting, the quarterbacks get pushed into the second round, if not the first round. So Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, those will be the top 3 quarterbacks. But I think if you're in a 2 receiver league, so 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, you can start running back. It's not my preferred strategy, but the running backs that will be there at the back end of round 2 are so good. Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, Kyron Williams still. The receivers at the back end of round 2 are going to be guys like Maybe Drake London slips down there. In some cases, I've seen A.J. Brown slip there, but that's a little rare. But you're looking at Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins, maybe still Lad McConkey. I think a lot of people are going to be concerned now with Keenan Allen signing there for the Chargers. So the receiver value sort of changes a little bit. And so if you are concerned about, building out your team before you even make your first selection, you might be better off going receiver in round 1, and you'll still get a pretty good running back in round 2.
Do you feel better after 2 rounds if you had 2 running backs or 2 receivers?
The way that I draft and the way that I view the positions, the top tier wide receivers, the pool gets a little bit thinner by comparison to the running backs. The running back, the rookie class this year, has the chance to be really special. We know about Ashton Genty. Then it's sort of a sliding scale where guys have a little bit more competition. But Omarion Hampton, Travion Henderson, Caleb Johnson. Unfortunately, we may not see Quinshon Judkins this year at all, understandably so. But the rookie class is good, and it's even further down with some of the guys adding depth to the position. So I think just the running back class overall, the running back core overall, is a little bit better in terms of talent as you get to the middle rounds. The wide receivers are still great, and there's going to be a lot of great talent, but the high end talent I think is baked into the wide receiver position a little bit more than running backs.
Where are we seeing Ashton Genty be drafted?
So anywhere from the middle of the first round to the
Wow.
early part of the second round. So I think there's a lot of people understandably excited about him. It's hard not to be, based on what he did in college and his opportunity for the Raiders, playing for Pete Carroll, who we know wants to run the ball. Chip Kelly's the offensive coordinator there. They're going to want to run the ball a lot. He's going to work in the passing game. I don't want to get out of control about it, so I love the setup for him. To me, there are a handful of guys that you could say in a better situation. And so I listed a few of them already. Obviously, you look at Robinson, you look at Barkley, you look at Gibbs. I think McCaffrey should go ahead of him. Some people are torn on that just after what happened to McCaffrey last year, but he's healthy now. And then Devon Achane. And I know Achane's another one. If you look at average draft position, he goes after Genty. But what Achane has done, I know we're going to talk Dolphins, but what Achane has done when Tua has been healthy is unbelievable. And so you hope that you get 17 games of Tua Tagovailoa, and that could be peak Alvin Kamara is what Devon Achane could be. Like, he catches the ball at a level that not many running backs do. Led the position in receptions last year. And so, especially with Jonnu Smith gone, Devon Achane could be a top 3 running back this year.
What's your strategy for quarterbacks this year? Like, I know you mentioned, in round 2, they started to go off the board. Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels. If you don't get one of those 3, first of all, where should you, if one of those 3 guys are available, at what position should you seriously consider taking them? And if those 3 guys are not available, how long would you like to wait until you take a quarterback?
So those 3 will be the first ones. I think there's 5 basically you can argue are in tier 1. And so it's Jackson, Allen, Daniels is the order I have, the top 3, and Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts. So what those guys do, Burrow could be a 5,000-yard passer. I don't think anybody would be surprised about that with his receiving core and what this defense looks like for Cincinnati. Jalen Hurts basically rolls out of bed. He gets you 700 rushing yards and 13 rushing touchdowns. So on top of what he could do as a passer. But obviously those 5 guys, I think, are going to, in some order, be the first 5 guys taken. Allen Jackson's going to be 1, 2. Daniels, Burrow, Hurts can be 3, 4, 5, whatever order. I think those guys should all come off the board. Me personally would be round 3 when I first start to consider the top 3 guys. The bottom 2, again, Burrow and Hurts, not soon after that. So I actually have them, I think, ranked all in round 3. First 3 guys, beginning part, latter 2 guys in the back end. And depends on the scoring system that you're in, because we go based on 6 points for passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
Most leagues do 4 points, or not most leagues, but some leagues do 4 points. So that changes a little bit because of the rushing totals. So if you get past those 5 guys, then I think there's a waiting period. Mahomes, you could read my tiers on CBSSports.com. I put Mahomes in a tier by himself, which is basically he's the 6th quarterback. He's kind of the bridge between the top 5 guys and the rest of the crew. If he can bounce back to any level of what he used to be, he's going to be in that top 5 conversation. But the last 2 years have been frustrating. So after Mahomes, it's a very jumbled group that I think you could put 10 guys in and say they could all be top 10 caliber quarterbacks. There's the rushing guys of Justin Fields and Kyler Murray and Drake May, who's one of my favorite sleepers this year. There's the potential of Caleb Williams with new coordinator and talent around him, with Ben Johnson, the head coach there. There's Trevor Lawrence and what Liam Cohen could do with Travis Hunter now there. But there's the tried and true guys. Baker Mayfield's coming off an unbelievable season. Bo Nix had a great rookie season. Dak Prescott, I think, bouncing back from his injury will be fine. Brock Purdy, Jared Goff. It's such a deep position. So I think if you're going to go for a quarterback and one of the top 5 guys, make the commitment, just say, okay, I'm going to pass up on some running back and wide receiver talent and be okay with that. Otherwise, you can wait and still have a very good quarterback group.
It sounds like Mahomes could be a huge risk reward type of scenario where, man, like, you take them. I don't know. It could be round 4, round 5. If those other 5 quarterbacks are going in round 3. And yeah, we know how good he is, where that could be where you really hit a home run at quarterback.
So the last 2 years have obviously been disappointing for him as a
Yeah.
fantasy quarterback. That being said, he's still been a top 10 quarterback. He's been like 9 through 11 each of the last 2 years. I mean, 1 year was 9, 1 year was 11, depending again on the scoring that you look at. So you were drafting him as QB1 or QB2. And then you get the disappointment. You're like, okay, this was awful. Now you're drafting him as QB6. If he finishes as QB9, okay, it's a disappointment, but it's not as bad. And now instead of taking him in the first 3 rounds, you're taking him mostly in the round 6 range. So it's a much better, high upside play. And especially if you look at what they've tried to do the last couple of years, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Marquise Brown. Now they have Tyquan Thornton. If anybody remembers him, was the fastest guy at the combine when he came out of college. There's a lot of speed there. And so if they can get back to throwing the ball down the field and be a little bit more explosive, which is clearly what they want. And now I think it's okay. We've got our 2 Super Bowls in the last 3 years. We're not trying to three-peat here. We're still a Super Bowl contender. But now maybe we go out and we attack the record books in some way, shape, or form and maybe put Mahomes back in the MVP conversation. That's been talked about in that building. So Mahomes can absolutely obliterate any draft position that he's at. But again, we've seen the last 2 years and how this offense has operated. So it's been a little frustrating.
We got 3 games tonight, Jamey. Don't care about the performance in these 3 games, but I do care about the skill players and what we think about them and maybe where we should draft them. So Colts and Ravens tonight. Let's talk about the skill players there. Where do you see them going? Who do you like?
So I don't think we're going to see anything from Baltimore that's going to change anybody. Not that they're playing their guys, but Lamar's number 1 quarterback or number 2. Derrick Henry's the top, 5-ish caliber running back. He's 7th for me, but in the end of the first round conversation. The receivers I think are going to be great. They just don't throw the ball to them enough to make them fantasy superstars. But Zay Flowers is a borderline 2-3 receiver. The Isaiah Likely injury, he's dealing with a foot injury that's going to keep him out, I think, the start of the season. Puts Mark Andrews back in the conversation as a top 10 guy, which I know sounds funny, but targets and receptions were awful for him last year. He was touchdown dependent, but hopefully now he gets a few more chances and he plays well. And then some late round picks. I know this name sounds funny to say late round pick, but DeAndre Hopkins, who's now a part of Baltimore's receiving corps, but he's older and not obviously coming off a good season. And Rashad Bateman, who actually led the receiving corps in touchdowns. So really nothing's going to change from tonight. Maybe you find out who the backup running back is behind Derrick Henry if you want to take a late round pick on Keaton Mitchell or Justice Hill. So keep an eye on that. For Indianapolis, really it's about the quarterback. So Anthony Richardson can still be a fantasy superstar. He's not going to be an NFL superstar unless everything changes for him as a passer. But what he does with his legs, another new weapon that they added in Tyler Warren. So the receiving core there is not going to match their potential. Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, again, Tyler Warren. They're not going to live up to what they could be because the passing game is just going to struggle. But long-term, I think there's a lot to like about it. So you want to take a piece of this passing game just to see what develops. I would rather see Richardson win the job, though, than Daniel Jones. And obviously, Jonathan Taylor's locked in as the featured guy until he maybe suffers an injury.
Also tonight, Bengals and Eagles. So we already talked about Hurts. We talked about Burrow. We talked about Jamar Chase. What about the other guys?
These are 2 teams that you know what you're getting. I think at this point, you look at the 4 main Bengals are all going to be off the board before the middle of round 3. Chase could be the number 1 overall pick. I should say probably middle to the end of round 3 with Burrow, but Chase is going to be the number 1 overall pick. T. Higgins is going to be one of the top 12 receivers drafted, late round 2, early round 3. Chase Brown, one of the top 12 running backs, late round 2, early round 3. We've had this conversation quite a bit that if you wanted to, you can start your team with Chase in round 1, Higgins and Chase Brown at the 2-3 turn, and then maybe Joe Burrow round 4. If you did it last year, you would have loved it. So we'll see if it would work out again. So they're tried and true. An old guy, an old name that South Florida fans will remember, Mike Gesicki. Not exactly a great fantasy tight end, but the 5 games that T. Higgins missed last year, he had some pretty good numbers. So tight end premium league, he could be good. For the Eagles, it's the same thing. Now, I'm concerned about Saquon Barkley. I don't know how many people share that sentiment, but the numbers are not in his favor. Coming off a 2,000-yard season, there were 8 guys that had 2,000 yards in NFL history. All 8 of them, or he's the 9th, excuse me, but all 8 previous ones lost 500 or more yards the following season. So even at 1,500 yards, he's still a really good runner. 1,600 yards, he's still a really good runner. But then you factor in he had over 480 total touches, over 400 carries. And that history is not good either. There's injury risk. There's concerns just about, can he hold up with all the work? So that's why he's not the number one overall running back for me, number one overall player. Most people would think, okay, everything stays the same. So I think we could see a little bit more passing for the Eagles, which I think will boost Jalen Hurts, will boost A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. So, you know what you're getting with all those guys. It's just, for me, Barkley's not going to be a top 5 overall pick.
And one more tonight, Raiders and Seahawks, both teams with new quarterbacks. No more DK Metcalf in Seattle. They do have Cooper Kupp. What do we think about these teams?
Yeah, in Seattle, there's two guys that I'm really excited about in Kenneth Walker and Jackson Smith-Njigba. We've seen great production from both those guys, certainly last year. Unfortunately, Walker's got an injury history that scares some people. So he played a career low 11 games. But in those 11 games, he had a career high in terms of points per game. And I think, as we saw last year, was, on pace for a 50-catch season, which I don't think a lot of people expected. So if he's going to be involved in the passing game, and I think this new system there with their new offense coordinator, Clint Kubiak, is going to really benefit him. So he's a third-round pick for me, just a guy outside the top 12 running backs. And JSN entering his third year, you mentioned no Metcalf. He had 2 games without Metcalf last year. He was awesome in both. And now you're seeing Cooper Kupp, who clearly struggled at the end of last season. So Kupp is going to be a factor. How much, we'll see. I do like their tight end, the rookie from Miami, Elijah Arroyo. I think he's going to be fun at some point during the season. We'll see how that goes. But if the offensive line holds up and Sam Darnold can show that it wasn't just Minnesota and he actually has sort of resurrected himself, then that offense will be fun. And the clear tie-in is obviously Geno Smith going from Seattle to Las Vegas. So he's going to be better for Brock Bowers, which is hard to say because Bowers was a record-setting tight end last year. So Bowers is again, late first round, early second round pick for me. He's more middle round 2. Jacoby Myers, one of the unsung fantasy heroes that we never talk about a lot, but can be a very solid, even number 2 receiver, but really more of a number 3 guy. And then obviously Ashton Genty is going to be one of the best rookies. I think, you think about some of the prospects we've talked about in the last, 10, 15 years of Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, Bijan Robinson. I think Genty's right up there with them, can easily be offensive rookie of the year.
Excellent job, Jamey. You said it all. I don't want to keep you too much longer. I know we said we were going to hit on the Dolphins. Let's save that for next week. All right. So we'll get to the Dolphins stuff. Tell everybody, Jamey joins us every Thursday. He's been doing it for years now with us. Tell everybody how they can hear you for the remainder of this week.
Easiest place is our podcast, Fantasy Football Today. You can find it wherever podcasts are available. I think we won a couple awards last year, so it's fun to get recognized. But, our best asset is helping people win their fantasy leagues, and, hopefully we continue to do that. So you can see us on YouTube as well. You can check out all my written content on cbssports.com, and always be able to help you on Twitter, which you can see my name right there at Jamey Eisenberg.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamey. Appreciate it, man. Good to get this started again. Thank you so much.
You're the best, bud. Good to talk to you.